Is it the Cowboys' year? Yes, we're doing this again. Dak Prescott is heading into season 7 with the Cowboys and doesn't have too much to show for it. Dallas still has not gotten past the divisional round. It's been since 95 when they won the Super Bowl. It's been a long time. Troy Aikman is known by a whole new generation for broadcasting, but those times of Aikman behind center feel very distant. Now, I remember Tony Romo, and that's about it. It just hasn't been pretty for Dallas for a long time, but there's been some hope every season that just maybe it could be their year. It hasn't been, and it probably won't be again, but I have to say, they look damn good. The Cowboys season opener was at the Giants, and it wasn't pretty. You probably watched it. It was Sunday Night Football, and it was a disaster. Dallas won 40-0. It couldn't have gone much worse for the Giants. The Cowboys were dominant in every way. They blocked a field goal for a touchdown to get it started, and then just never stopped. The defense was the real story, and it probably will be the main story all year. On the offense, Tony Pollard went for 70 and scored twice in what was the first game without Ezekiel Elliott on the roster since 2015. I didn't think Dak Prescott played too well, but he really didn't need to do much. He was 13 of 24 with 143 yards. He didn't end up scoring, but he also didn't throw a pick. Dak was a solid game manager, and the roster around him did the rest, which is going to be the best way for the Cowboys to win games. Looking back, it's possible the Giants aren't that good, but we'll see. Regardless, it was a perfect start to the season for the Cowboys, and they just turned around and kept rolling in week 2 against the other New York team, the Jets. Now, that was a little different because Aaron Rodgers obviously got hurt, so Zach Wilson started and ended up throwing 3 picks. It was ugly, and the Dallas defense looked really good again. The big deal was Dak looked really good too. He ended up going 31 of 38 for 255 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, the Cowboys need him to be good this year if they're going to be a serious playoff team. He looked good, and Dallas overall just looked really promising. They ended up winning 30-10 and jumped to 2-0. They're actually one of 3 NFC East teams that are still undefeated. The Eagles and Commanders are 2. So there are actually 3 undefeated teams in just the NFC East, and there's only 2 undefeated teams in the entire AFC. So the NFC East may just be the best division in football again this season. Dallas really should be 3-0 after next week because they visit the Cardinals in week 3. Now, Arizona has looked better than expected. They led Washington, and they were blowing out the Giants, but of course they lost both games. They're still just not a very good team, and the Cowboys shouldn't have much of an issue. Dallas has a pretty easy start to the season is what it looks like, but what is going to happen once the real tests start? The Cowboys should be Super Bowl contenders, theoretically. It feels like the roster is good enough, so it's really going to matter how they play against some of the top dogs in the league. They should start 3-0. Then it gets tougher. Dallas plays the Patriots, 49ers, and Chargers before their bye. The Niners, shocker, look really good again. Then the Patriots and Chargers haven't played too well, but I still think those are 2 solid teams. They're 2 teams that the Cowboys should actually be good enough to beat, though. Same goes for the Rams coming out of the bye. Most people think the NFC East should be between the Cowboys and Eagles, and I definitely agree. The first time we get to see each other is actually going to be in early November. We've only seen Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott play each other once, and it was back in September of 2021. Remember, Dak was hurt for the first matchup last year, and then Hurts was injured for the first one at the end of the season. So it's safe to say Hurts is a very different quarterback since the last time they played. Hopefully we get a healthy matchup this time around, and it should be very telling. That starts a stretch where Dallas plays 4 divisional games in 6 weeks at Eagles versus Giants versus Commanders and versus Eagles. Then in between, they also play the Panthers, who haven't looked great early, and the Seahawks. I think that's going to be a really important stretch for Dallas. If they aren't good over that span, they're screwed, because right after it goes Bills, Dolphins, Lions. 3 teams that should be playing in late January. That'll be tough, and it should ready the Cowboys for the postseason. Then that Week 18 game's at the Commanders. I'm not even sure if that's going to matter or not. Now, I do think the Cowboys are really good. I think they're even playoffs good, but I don't know about Super Bowl good. Most people would blame Dak Prescott, but I'm much more worried about coaching. It's really hard to have faith in Mike McCarthy. Even when he got hired, it just felt like the Cowboys were bringing in another yes man like Jason Garrett was. McCarthy's going to do whatever Jerry tells him to do. Sometimes it feels like Aaron Rodgers just dragged him to that Super Bowl in Green Bay. Then from there, it was just a whole lot of tension and complaints until it ended. Well, I have some bad news. Dak Prescott isn't Aaron Rodgers. The Cowboys also pretty much used Kellen Moore as the scapegoat last season. Now he's the Chargers OC, and Brian Schottenheimer took over in Dallas. It just doesn't feel like a home run coaching staff. And if the staff isn't great, the roster needs to be. You probably need an elite QB, and the Cowboys don't. Well, Dak led the league in interceptions last year, and he hasn't been particularly great in recent seasons. He's more of a game manager, and that's okay. He has a good offensive line around him with some good weapons like CeeDee Lamb and newly acquired Brandon Cooks. Then the run game is going through Tony Pollard now without Zeke. It is really weird not seeing Zeke and Dak together. You know, they came in 2016. They were really good, and now it's just a weird change with him in New England. The offense overall on paper is good, it just needs to perform well, and those tests are going to come up soon with some good defenses on the schedule, including the Jets, who they did just put up 30 on. Dak is going to be the biggest factor of the Cowboys' success, but the absolute pillar of the team is the defense, and the best player on the roster, which is Micah Parsons. I have no doubts when it comes to the Dallas defense. Dan Quinn is a wizard, and he has some insane dudes on that defense. Trayvon Diggs and Stephon Gilmore are a great cornerback duo in the secondary. Then the pass rush is great too with Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, so they have a scary defense. The Cowboys are a team I've been back and forth on a lot. They have a lot of the right pieces to be a good team, and at times they've shown that they are a good team, and then it just falls apart. I mean, as a Washington fan, I'm not exactly, rooting for Dallas, but I have thought they were going to be really good for so many years in a row now. They just keep falling short, and I think that's going to be the case again this season. I do actually think they win the division. At least I did when the season started. Some of the pieces the Eagles lost, mainly on defense, just kind of make me think the Cowboys might be better. I don't fully believe in Jalen Hurts. I actually think Dak is a little more reliable at times. I think they end up at least with the better defense, and I think that might make them win the division. Dallas is absolutely a playoff team, regardless, no doubt in my mind. They're better than the average team. It's just, compared to those top postseason teams, that's where we're going to have to see. I don't think they can beat the 49ers. That seems to be the team to beat in the NFC, and if I had to pick a team to make the Super Bowl right now, it'd be the Niners from the NFC. Looking at the rest of the conference, though, you can make a very good argument that Dallas is the second best team. They've already won their first two games by a combined score of 70-10. That's a really rare feat in the pros, but it did come against Zach Wilson and a Giants team that may suck, so we'll see. At some point, everything's going to blow up in Dallas, even if it's years down the road, and we're going to look back and try to figure out what the problem was, because it was such a talented roster, and I think it's going to be coaching. I do think Dak Prescott's good enough to win a Super Bowl if the talent around him is good enough, but he'd also need the right coaching, and he's never had that, and I blame Jerry Jones for that. He needs a yes man. He wants all the credit, and he wants somebody that'll say yes. It's why he fired Jimmy Johnson in the 90s. It's why he hired Jason Garrett, and it's why he hired Mike McCarthy. Every piece of the Cowboys needs everything else around it to be perfect, and that shit doesn't work. But the potential's there, and maybe they'll surprise us, but probably not.